Hello and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today I'll be showing you how to cycle from Dalston in northeast London to Harringay Green Lanes. This ride takes about 15 minutes and you can do the whole thing on quiet streets and protected cycle lanes. By public transport, the same journey will take you as long as half an hour, so it's a lot quicker to get around here by bike. If you find this video useful or you just enjoy watching it, then please don't forget to hit the bell icon and to subscribe to the channel, as I try to post new ones just like it every week. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the channel's supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute too, there's a link in the description. Okay, let's get going. So we're starting on the corner of the A10 and Barrett's Grove, and we're going to head straight down Barrett's Grove. This street is actually on the edge of the Stoke Newington low traffic neighbourhood. This was introduced as a trial about a year ago in October 2021 and consists of a number of road closures west of the A10 to eliminate through traffic. The first part of this video is through that LTN, and I think it illustrates quite well how it's made local cycle trips around this area really easy and pleasant for anybody who wants to get around by bike. You'd certainly have no qualms about letting a kid cycle to school here, for instance. For this first section of the video, we're actually following a signposted route called Cycle Superhighway 1, but that won't last long and we will really be making our own way for most of it, which I think is one of the benefits of LTNs because you don't have to follow a specific route. All the streets in the area really become cyclable. After we're done in the LTN, we're going to go on shared paths through Clissold Park and then take a relatively new, lightly protected cycle lane up Green Lanes before going through more traffic-free paths in Finsbury Park. Although the streets around here are a little bit on the narrow side because of all the on-street parking on both sides, it's really quite a pleasant cycling experience. After you pass the Shakespeare pub, you turn off right here up Milton Grove. And just a quick note that this route isn't quite symmetrical. You'll see that this is a one-way street and doesn't have contraflow cycling on it in two ways. So you'll have to take a different route if you're going in the opposite direction. But fortunately, it's just the next road along. It's the road we passed next to the Shakespeare pub called Shakespeare Walk. Clearly, whoever named the roads around here had an interest in English literary greats. If you feel you need to download a map of this route for your app or device, by the way, you can find the link in the description. It's on a website called Komoot and you can either use it in their app or you can download it and use it in whatever app or device you use, as long as it accepts .gpx files, which I think most of them do. It is a standard format. That's particularly useful for this first section of the route, I think, where you're really picking your way through quiet streets and the way is not obvious. Although really from now on it's going to get a little bit more direct and we'll mostly be going on main roads and paths, so it's a lot easier to remember. As we get to the end of this road and we cross Stoke Newington Church Street, there is a zebra crossing here. It would be nice to see this zebra crossing replaced with a joint parallel bike zebra crossing. There are some that are specifically designed for bikes, as it would make it easier to cycle into the park. You are allowed to cycle on the paths here, as you can see, but just remember, especially when it's busy, that you are sharing them with pedestrians, so don't go too quickly and make sure you give them priority. It can sometimes be difficult to remember which paths to cycle on because they obviously don't have any names, so if it helps you remember, you can just see in the distance that big cream-coloured, reasonably contemporary building looming ahead of us. Just head straight for that and it should be relatively easy to find your way. Unfortunately, this park does close at dusk, which can be a problem for commuting during the winter, as that is often before the end of office hours. If that's you, there is an alternative route. Instead of going down Clissold Road, turn left down Clissold Crescent and you should quickly come to the bottom of Green Lanes, which is the street we've just got to now. You'd basically just be joining it further down. Going through the park cuts the corner when it's open, however, so I do like it. As you can see, we're now on this main road and you might be thinking, I thought this was quiet streets and protected cycle lanes, and you would have a point. There are actually lightly protected cycle lanes here. As you can see, we're now protected by plastic ones. Unfortunately, they're slightly intermittent. That said, they do a reasonably decent job for most of their length, and I think they would make most people feel pretty comfortable cycling down here. They are in both directions, and you can be in protected lanes on the other side of the road as well. They were introduced last year as part of emergency COVID measures with temporary materials, and I would hope that when the lanes are made permanent and they were done with permanent materials, they would have a slightly more comprehensive design with a little bit more protection, especially around the junctions and behind bus stops, which I think is probably the main place that needs improvement. Despite the compromises in this design though, I would feel comfortable recommending people cycle down here, although I'm not a massive fan of the junction that's coming up ahead. And the way we're going to deal with that is we're actually going to dismount and cross on foot. That really isn't ideal, but I think it's probably the safest and most effective way of doing it. So we go to the pavement here and we get off our bike and we simply cross this road here, Seven Sisters Road, as a pedestrian wheeling our bike. And it takes us to the entrance to Finsbury Park here. And we're going to cycle on traffic-free paths down Finsbury Park, which is quite nice. Finsbury Park is actually open 24 hours a day, so you don't need an alternative route here, and you can use this at any time of day. Although I would note that there isn't much in the way of lighting here, which I'll just note, and people can use their own judgment as to whether that's something that they would feel comfortable with. You may have noticed that we were on Green Lanes, which is the road we were on just then, and we're also going to Green Lanes just further up in Harringay. So why have we left the route on Green Lanes? Surely we would just stay on there and go straight up. Well, unfortunately, the protected cycle lane actually gives up. And while there are a few sections alongside the park, it's far from continuous. So in order to benefit from a traffic-free route, we've actually gone a little slight detour through the park, which is why we're not on the main road anymore. I think if we really want to see lots of people cycling around here, then a continuous route on Green Lanes, including a safe junction where we got off, is really important. And I know that Harringay Council, which looks after the bit to the north of that junction, is definitely planning to extend a new route. So hopefully they'll be working with Hackney and they can both build something that's really high quality and continuous. A good example of what that could look like is further north in Enfield, which also has a section of Green Lanes in its borough boundary, and it's really good and has strong protected cycle lanes. You can see that in other videos on the channel. Do be careful as you cross the road coming out of the park, by the way, and head into Tancred Road, and then turn right down Lothair Road North. And this road will take you to the end of Green Lanes, so that's the end of our detour, and it will drop you right next to Green Lane Station. Unfortunately, that section there is actually one way without a cycle contraflow to get in, so really you should dismount there, and of course dismount as you go on the pavement. I'd love to see a protected route up that section of Green Lanes as well, which could connect nicely up through the Wood Green High Road and to Enfield. So, thanks very much for watching that, guys. I hope it's useful and illustrated that some of the slightly disconnected bits of cycle network and infrastructure in this part of London are maybe not so disconnected after all if you use a little bit of imagination. It would be great to see them improved and linked together even better. But for now, I think that's not a terrible ride making the most of what we've got. Cheers for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think and if you've got any other ideas for routes you'd like to see. And see you again next time. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and thank you again to all the Patreon supporters.